Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News of this Sunday. It is the 23rd day of March, 2025. And as always, we have some important stories that have come across the wire in the last few hours. These stories continue to support the biblical position of what our world will look like in the last days before the second coming of Christ and the many specific events predicted to precede it. So let's get to them. Headline number one, according to U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump aims to avoid military action against Iran. Our second headline is also a Witkoff one. Hamas rejects the bridging proposal that he's put forward and refuses to demilitarize. So we'll talk about those two problems. The U.S. is still searching for a state to accept the Palestinians from Gaza, the Israeli cabinet has told. Nobody wants these people. Number four, we have a U.S. strikes in Yemen took out key Houthi leaders, we're told. This is from Mike Waltz, one of Trump's associates there, one of his envoys. Uh, and then finally, China. This is a real interesting story. China has set up Iran's next war in the Middle East. This is from Gatestone Institute. So a lot of interesting headlines. All right, headline number one. Donald Trump aims to avoid military action against Iran. This is Steve Witkoff, U.S. envoy. He seeks a diplomatic solution to Iranian nuclear ambition. Tehran dismisses talks as deception while uranium enrichment and sanctions escalate. Okay, so his outreach to Iran's top authority, Ali Khamenei, on a possible new nuclear deal is an effort to avoid military action. This is not a new story. This is Steve Witkoff today talking to Fox News. And basically, he says, we don't need to solve anything militarily. He told Fox News, our signal to Iran is let's sit down and see if we can, through dialogue, through diplomacy, get to the right place. If we can, we are prepared to do that. If we can't, the alternative is not a great alternative. This month, as we know, Trump sent a letter to Khamenei warning there are two ways Iran can be handled, militarily or you make a deal. Khamenei rejected the U.S. offer for talks as a deception, saying negotiation with Trump and his administration would tighten the knot of sanctions and increase pressure on Iran. However, here comes the interesting however, Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi said on Thursday that Tehran would soon reply to both the letters, threats, and opportunities. He cautioned on Sunday that talks to the U.S. are impossible unless Washington changes its pressure policy. Speaking separately on CBS News, the White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said U.S. has sought full dismantlement of Iran's nuclear program. Iran has to give up its program in a way that the entire world can see. As President Trump has said, this is all coming to a head. All options are on the table, and it's time for Iran to walk away completely from its desire to have a nuclear weapon. Now, Tehran has long lied about their purpose for it. They say it's only for peaceful purposes. We all know that's not true because for the last 20 odd years, they've been saying they're trying to develop a nuclear weapon, several of them actually, one to destroy the little Satan Israel, one to destroy the big Satan United States. And this is their goal because according to Shia Islam, they're Shia Muslims. Only 10% of the Muslims in the world are Shia, 90% are Sunnis. But in the Shia Islam theology, the world's going to be basically destroyed by some type of great conflagration, and then Islamic rule will take over the entire world. And they believe, and here's the problem, they believe they're predestined. They're the ones that Allah destined to accomplish this. So there's really nothing you can do, nothing you can say unless someone understands this. All the talk they do is futile. And Iran is never going to listen because there's no way you can intimidate them or coerce them with money or whatever it might be, even threaten them, because they really believe in their heart of hearts that what they're doing is a divine directive. And so that's the problem here. So again, sooner or later, there's going to have to be a fight. Now, Witkoff, again, this is real interesting. Hamas has rejected his bridging proposal and refuses to demilitarize. Concerning Iran, Witkoff says they cannot gain access to a nuclear weapon, says it cannot happen and it will not happen. We just saw that. But then he goes and moves on to Hamas. And he says Hamas has had every opportunity to demilitarize and accept the bridging proposal, but they elected not to. He said this Sunday on Fox News. Hamas is the aggressor here. The United States stands with the state of Israel. Hamas is responsible for the renewed fighting in Gaza after rejecting efforts to move forward with what has been an acceptable deal. Would we be amenable to reach out from Hamas? So any reach out from Hamas? Of course we would be. No different than in the Russia conflict in Ukraine. We want to end the killing, but we need to be clear who the aggressor is, and this is Hamas. Now, what's really interesting here, just like the previous article, he actually acted surprised that Hamas had rejected the proposal. Remember the earlier story when he did this interview with anti-Semite Tucker Carlson? Basically, Witkoff said, well, we want to talk it out. We can dialogue. We can get all this done through dialogue, like he just said with Iran, too. And there doesn't be any need for fighting. And we just think we can accomplish that goal. Well, no, it's impossible because you, again, need to realize both Iran and Hamas have one goal in mind, and that's to destroy the state of Israel. That's their main goal. It's part of the charter of Hamas. It's part of the goals of Iran. Death to the U.S., death to Israel. Actually, death to Israel first, then death to the U.S. And so there's no way they're going to negotiate, no way whatsoever. The only thing they understand is military strength and military power. So he still doesn't get it. The acting surprise. And it's interesting how many observers who understand the Middle East, the mindset and that, just shake their head why Americans keep trying the same things over and over and over again. All the Western leaders, the two-state solution, this and that, will never work because the mindset that's there with these Islamic nations, they don't believe Israel has the right to exist. They believe Israel is in their territory, their property, their land, and they need to get them out. And so this is an ongoing problem. But when you see these stories, it is frustrating. But then again, this is the way it is. All right, headline number 3. U.S. is still searching for a state to accept Palestinians from Gaza, the Israeli cabinet is told. They're working together to advance the Gaza migration plan. Minister tells cabinet. The U.S. government is still searching again to who would receive the Palestinians, where to resettle them from Gaza. Told this during the cabinet meeting last night, Saturday evening. The message conveyed to the cabinet: we are working on this together with the U.S. As part of the meeting, the cabinet approved a proposal by Defense Minister Israel Katz to establish a voluntary migration office for Gaza residents who express interest in relocating to third countries. All this will be in accordance with Israeli and international law and aligned with the vision of Donald Trump, he's quoted as saying. So in other words, if you want to leave, we're going to set up an office where you can leave. And as we mentioned yesterday in one of the stories we did, at least half the people in Gaza have expressed publicly they want to leave. And the other half that haven't expressed it are afraid to because they're afraid something will happen to them. They all want to leave. Like we've said before, our friend Nodder, who has his people over there working, in both Gaza and with the Israelis, and basically saying the attitude of the Gazans that they know that they work with, they all want to leave. They don't want to be in this mess. And who can blame them? Who would want to be? Because the Hamas rule is horrible there, but they don't see any way out. They don't see any help. And so it's a sad situation. And so they're using every available means, Israel and the U.S., to find someplace that'll take them. But again, if a Gaza resident wishes to relocate voluntarily, they want to help them along. Again, the problem is not only no country wants them because of their behavior, but also, too, there's something else. These Islamic countries want them to remain a thorn in the side of Israel. They want them to stay there so they can be a constant problem with Israel. This is one of the reasons this people group was invented. It's like we've said before, there's no such thing as the Palestinian people. We've talked about this in our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end in one of the appendices. Who are the Palestinians? Well, they're a made-up people. They're not indigenous to the land. Yasser Arafat, the leader of the PLO, was born in Egypt. And so they're people who came there earlier to work. They just happened to be there when certain wars took place. And once Israel in 1948 did this fabulous, with the help of God, obviously, defeat of the 5 different armies that attacked them after the modern state was reborn, the world was marveling at Israel. Look at how they are the underdog, against, this great group of nations, and basically fighting them back and surviving. And the world couldn't, particularly the Islamic world, couldn't have that. So they had to develop an underdog. Israel was the underdog against the 5 nations. Now the underdog, and Israel is the terrible master. That's the Palestinians. And again, the story kept going. Well, this is their land, not Israelis' land. And they've stolen it from them, and these poor people need to get it back, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been what's going on. So anyway, we're seeing this continue to play out. All right, headline number 4, Israel's security cabinet approves independence for 13 West Bank settlements. Hooray and hallelujah. From Smotrich, the finance minister, we continue to lead a revolution of normalization and regulation in the settlements. Instead of hiding and apologizing, we raise the flag, build, and settle. Good for him. Israel's security cabinet approved a plan to separate 13 Jewish settlements in the West Bank, that's Judea, Samaria, from their neighboring communities, Smotrich said on Sunday. The settlements will ultimately be recognized as independent, he posted on X about the move, which follows the approval of tens of thousands of housing units across the West Bank. Oh, they'll be mad at that, the rest of the world. We continue to lead a revolution of normalization and regulation of the settlements. Instead of hiding and apologizing, we raise the flag, build and settle. Another important step to the actual sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, Smotrich said. Now, there's a possibility that Judea, Samaria, the West Bank will be annexed by Israel. They want to do that. We'll see if the United States goes for it. This is still one of these things possibly on the table. Time will tell. All right, another story about the Houthis. Headline number 5. U.S. strikes in Yemen took out key Houthi leaders, we find out. Now, this is from Mike Waltz, the national security advisor to Trump. U.S. strikes in Yemen take out the key leaders as the group escalates threats, including a blockade on Ben Gurion Airport and missile attacks on Israel. A U.S. military campaign of strikes in Yemen launched just over a week ago has so far taken out key Houthi leadership, including the group's top missile specialist, says National Security Advisor Mike Waltz on Sunday. U.S. military has so far released few details about the operation, launched after Houthi threats to renew its attacks on Red Sea shipping over the war in Gaza. We've hit their headquarters, we've hit communications nodes, weapons factories, and even some of their over-the-water drone production facilities, Waltz told CBS. Waltz did not identify the slain missile specialist and gave no details on the other leaders who have been killed. Now, sadly, of course, rocket sirens activated across Israel, including in areas near Jerusalem, due to a ballistic missile launch from Yemen today, Sunday. This is the 5th one since Tuesday, been launched by the Houthis. It was successfully intercepted before entering Israeli airspace. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will send a second aircraft carrier to accompany the USS Harry Truman to the area. And basically what it's going to do is, show the Houthis who's boss and once and for all shut them down. Like Donald Trump just the other day said, we're going to totally obliterate you and destroy you. And the U.S. has the firepower to do it. So the second aircraft carrier going there, according to the AP, Associated Press and Politico, is there to finish the job. And again, we are capable of doing that. So the Houthis haven't learned. But again, let's remember, the Houthis are just the arm of Iran. They're a surrogate of Iran. Iran's money, Iran's weapons, Iran's plan, everything is Iranian. And so it's one of these 3 surrogates that are having really hard times that Iran now understands, which one of our stories said earlier, they're a liability, not an asset, the Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah. And so it's really interesting to watch them being taken out of the mix, even though they're still fighting back and they're still problematic to Israel, as we mentioned, particularly with Lebanon. All right, now this last story is really fascinating. Gatestone Institute has got an interesting website. They always got some good stories, but this one here I thought would be a good one to end on. China has set up Iran's next war in the Middle East. Here's kind of the takeaway points. It's a whole long, like 3-page article, but you've got a few, summary points here, bullet points. The article says Iran, in short, has a nuclear weapons program because of China. For a long time, the international community looked the other way as the atomic ayatollahs, in violation of their treaty obligations, worked on building these fearsome devices. We've been talking about this for years. President Donald Trump, to his credit, is taking the issue head on. Tehran, and this is really interesting, this next paragraph. Tehran almost certainly has a nuclear bomb by now. The Iranians themselves have made that clear. There is only a 1-week gap from the issuance of the order to the first test of a nuclear bomb, according to April 2024 public statement of a senior Iranian lawmaker. In other words, there's only a gap of 1 week from the first test of it when they tested out to when they can actually send one. Diplomats from Russia, Iran, China met in Beijing this month, at least as we've talked about, to support Iran's nuclear weapons program. Tehran is bolstered by Beijing and Moscow. Publicly, it said it has no desire to talk to Trump. Of course it doesn't. Iran, again, like we said, believes they're supernaturally guided to build this missile to destroy the little Satan Israel and the big Satan the U.S. And so that's why they're developing these. There are, in fact, the article goes on to say, conversation behind the scenes going on, but Iran nonetheless would not be brazen if Beijing were not fully supporting it. So China's in the mix here, and it's really interesting. China is not a player, obviously, in last days Bible prophecy, as is not the U.S. Something will happen to each of these countries to take them out of the picture. What they are, we don't know, but they have been instrumental in helping Iran, as North Korea has also, in developing a nuclear weapon. So the article concludes, if Waltz is as good as his word that Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, then China, by arming the Ayatollahs with nukes, has made sure that the world's next confrontation will be historic. Well, indeed. So there's so much going on, never a dull moment. What's going to happen next? Well, stay tuned. Only God knows, and we'll give you the latest. But from so many areas, China, Iran, Russia, the Middle East, obviously Israel, Lebanon, it's all coming to a head in so many different parts of the world. But what it all does, and this is the key, it all confirms what Scripture says the players will actually, where they'll look like on the map at the time of the end, who's going to be where and who's going to fight with whom. We know for a fact what will eventually happen, and we're seeing it form right now. Again, you can't make this stuff up. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.